How are you doing today, Sebastian?
I'm doing great today. Thank you. How are you?
Very excited to talk with you because we can relate with so many different things, and I'm going to learn a lot from you today because that thing of, being out there on the front lines, during the COVID lockdown, that was one story, but you were physically on the front lines. I mean, to be in that moment and to keep the calm, how did you move through those storms?
Yeah, I mean, I was a war reporter for a long time, and I started in the early 90s in the siege of Sarajevo. I was in Afghanistan in 1996. After 9/11, I went back there. I was all over the civil wars of West Africa. I've been blown up. I've had bullets hit inches from my head. I was taken captive by a rebel group in Nigeria and told that they were going to execute me later. They didn't, obviously. So, I got very good at sort of keeping an outward calm, right? Like I remember when they said they were going to execute me, I remember just thinking, don't let your knees buckle. Whatever you do, stay standing for God's sake. And I did. I got very good at that. And, of course, if you suppress that much fear and feelings like that, soldiers get this all the time. They come back later, right? I mean, you pay, it's like a credit card debt. You're going to pay it plus 30% later on. But what I stopped war reporting after my best friend and colleague and brother, Tim Hetherington, was killed in Libya in combat. He and I made Restrepo together, a documentary called Restrepo together of American combat troops in Eastern Afghanistan. And I got out of the business then. And I just thought, okay, now I'm safe, right? Like I'm no longer in war zones. I got married. I had a family. I had two wonderful little girls. I turned towards life, and it never occurred to me that the front lines could follow me home, right? Like none of us realized at the end of the day, we don't know this isn't our last day alive. Like none of us know that. It could be the last day that we spend alive. And that's what happened to me 4 years ago. We were in a remote area of Massachusetts and a property that we own, an old house deep in the woods at the end of a dead-end dirt road, no cell phone service, landlines that don't work when it rains because they short out. And I had this sudden pain in my abdomen. And what I didn't know was that an artery in my abdomen had ruptured.
Oh my God.
It had blown out. And that happens sometimes. It's a freak thing and it's quite rare. And I was bleeding out into my own abdomen. I was losing a pint of blood every 10 or 15 minutes. And the hospital was a 1 hour drive from where we were. And we couldn't even get a cell phone signal to call the ambulance. Well, I got there. It took about an hour and a half. I finally got to the hospital. I was a human hourglass, basically, but I made it just in time. And they rushed me into the trauma bay. They realized immediately that I had an abdominal hemorrhage. And they started prepping my neck to give me to put a large gauge needle through my neck into my jugular to transfuse me, to give me blood. I needed 10 units of blood, basically a whole body's worth of blood. And while they're working on me, now I should say I'm an atheist, a lifelong atheist, as was my father, who was a physicist. As they're working on me, this very mysterious thing happened. I had no idea I was dying, right? But suddenly I became aware of this black pit, this black abyss, then opened up underneath me and to my left. And I was getting pulled into it. And I knew I didn't want to go. I didn't know I was dying, but I knew I didn't want to go into this darkness. And then my dead father appeared above me and said, in this weird energy form, this sort of essence of him, and he communicated to me, it's okay, you don't have to fight it, you can come with me, I'll take care of you. And I mean, frankly, it's a hell of a thing to do to an atheist, to produce his dead father above him in the emergency, in the ER, and I was horrified. I didn't know I was dying. And I was like, go with you, you're dead. I'm not going anywhere with you. Like I was quite almost offended at the suggestion. And I said to the doctor, because I'm still conscious, I said to the doctor, you got to hurry. You're losing me right now. I'm going. And, 6 hours later, they managed to save me. They put a catheter into my groin and threaded it all around and got it to the site of the bleed and embolized it and plugged the leak and saved my life.
So I realize, that you openly speak that about being an atheist, but when you get that close to your father again, how do your beliefs change? I'm not saying that, oh, now you got to be a Christian. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, so you've got something inside of you that's going to teach us now to go through the same struggles and victories that you did, because now I want to believe in you in the way that you've had this experience.
Yeah, right. Of course. And so what I would say is that I'm an atheist. I'm not religious. God is not part of my daily practice.
Right.
It's not part of my life. I very much respect people who take that path. Wonderful. And what happened, and had I seen God, right? I mean, had God presented himself to me on whatever that would even look like, we'd be having a different conversation, right? But, I saw my father. And when I woke up in the ICU and the nurse said, "You almost died last night," I mean, I had no idea that I'd almost died. It was shocking news. And as soon as she said that, I remembered seeing my father.
Yep.
And the pit, right? And I say that because to me, it gives some credence to the fact that experience did actually happen to me. I didn't sort of make it up later, right? And so this is where I landed with it. The fact that the universe exists is inexplicable and a great mystery. And consciousness itself is actually not understood by scientists. It's also a great mystery. And life itself, all of it, we can understand some parts of how it all works, but we don't understand why. And we don't understand fundamental things about it. And the physicists will tell you that, right? Like that there are huge gaps. And what I felt was that the subtitle of my book is how I came face to face with the idea of an afterlife. Now, I can't prove there is or isn't one, but I definitely had to confront the idea of one because I saw my dead father. And it turns out that near-death experiences, as they're called, NDEs, are very, very common. And that one of the most common versions is that a dead relative, a dead loved one, shows up to escort you across the threshold. Now, because of Western medicine, for most of human history, you get that close to dying, you're going to die, right? Mm-hmm. But with Western medicine, we can be brought back. I got 10 units of blood, and the sheer magic of a catheterization, that they didn't have to open me up to save me. They did it entirely through my venous system. It's extraordinary. So we know that many, many people have this experience, and throughout in all different societies, throughout the ages. So it made me think maybe there's something fundamental at the quantum level. My father was a physicist, so at the subatomic level, maybe there's something about consciousness, about reality, about matter, about life, about death that we just don't understand. And that when we die, we interface with that great mystery that is real, that's physically there, right? It's in real terms, it's there. We just don't, the scientists just don't quite understand it, maybe are incapable of understanding it, but that's what we're encountering. And that to me, one of the theories is a kind of universal consciousness. It's called biocentrism. Mm-hmm. And that consciousness is part of the matter of the universe, like gravity is, and actually makes it possible. And that we are all individually part of this colossus, this great consciousness, and that's what we return to when we die. You can't prove it, you can't disprove it, but there's something in that. It's a rational scientific theory, right? It's not religion, it's an actual proposal with some rational reasons behind it. And that to me is really sort of comforting in a way. And if I had to land somewhere, I would say it's something around maybe that idea.
What I find so fascinating is I love the fact that you described the hole and then the darkness to your side, and yet you didn't say anything about the light on the other side, because that's how the rest of us are taught. Oh, the big bright light, but I think that's fascinating that you notice the darkness over the light.
Well, my heart didn't stop. I didn't technically die. I was definitely headed, I was 10 or 15 minutes away from cardiac arrest, and many of the experiences. I mean, look, my mother, when she died, she was talking to her dead relatives for, a good day before she passed, right? So it doesn't have to be the moment of death, but the dying see the dead and nobody else sees the dead. Like, I'm sorry, like no one else in the room with my mom saw her brother George in the corner, right? Like only she saw him and she really saw him, right? And she was quite upset that he was there because she didn't like him very much. And I remember saying to my mother, you got to be nice to him. He's come a long way to see you. And, you have to be nice to him. And she sort of frowned and said, we'll see about that. So the sibling rivalry continued into the afterlife, as it were. But so, what I would say is that my mind was opened to all possibilities. And, I think there is a great mystery, and I think you can lead your life in a beautiful way with the help of religion and an equally beautiful way without the help of religion. Either way, the point is, the most profound point of existence is to be aware of really how just lucky we are, extraordinary it is that we exist, that the universe exists, that you have children, or that you love someone, or that you anything. And it's a very easy thing to forget. And I think it's if there is a form of religious revelation that can come to secular people, I think it comes in that form, just a shock and an amazement at the beauty of being alive.
Do you fear death? Because, after I had a heart attack on July 21st, 2009, and I don't fear it. What I do now is I enjoy life. I look at the trees differently. I look at the spiders. I don't kill spiders. I don't kill any bugs. But it's almost like everything around me has a purpose, and we get to fit inside that. Do you feel that way?
I do, and increasingly after my near death, and I'm sorry to hear about your heart attack, and I'm thank God you made it. I feel that religion is a wonderful way to appreciate life, but as you say, you can sort of do it on your own. And what I've tried to do is I'm sober. I don't drink alcohol. I don't take drugs. I don't even have a smartphone. I feel like that there is a kind of digital addiction. I want to be a completely sober person. I feel like there's a kind of digital addiction that comes with smartphones where you're distracted from your actual experience and sucked in by these algorithms, sucked into a digital world, which ultimately isn't really real, right? These are pixels on a screen. They represent things that are real, but they're not real themselves. Meanwhile, look up from your phone and there's a tree, there's a person, there's a spider, there's things that actually are real. And so, what I would say is that I think what I try to do is be present. And I'm present by not changing my mind with alcohol. When I was young, I loved drinking, and I'm so glad I did a lot of it because I had a blast, right? So I get it. But now I'm 62. Who do I want to be right now? If I was going to die tomorrow, would I really get drunk? I tell you, I sure as hell wouldn't, and would I be on my phone? Nope, wouldn't be on my phone, right? Would I bother hating other people because I didn't like it? Nope, not going to waste my time on that. And, and so I try to sort of live my life by those precepts.
Did you ever read The Stranger from Mark Twain? And the reason why I bring that up is because I was blown away over the weekend when I came across this, where he says, the universe doesn't exist. You don't exist. The only thing that you have is your thoughts. And that whole, it's like 2 or 3 different paragraphs that go into detail. But I never even thought of Mark Twain even writing something like that. But it changed me because it's like, well, what if he's right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. That's quite a profound thought. And it took a long time for physicists to sort of catch up with that. And what they found, I'll make this brief and simple, but it's fascinating. At the quantum level, the subatomic level, if you fire a photon at a plate that has 2 slits in it, a photon is what light is made out of, right? Mm-hmm. So you fire a photon at a subatomic particle at a plate with 2 slits in it. Obviously, if you try to walk, if you have to walk, if there's 2 doorways, you can only walk through one doorway at a time. You can't go through both at the same time. It makes no sense. But with a photon, if you're not watching, if you're not measuring and tracking the photon, it will go through both slits simultaneously. It will be in 2 places at once. Wow. And they know that because the strike plate on the other side shows 2 signatures. It shows a waveform on the other side that can only happen if it goes through both slits. If you measure it, monitor it, track it, observe it when you fire the photon, it is forced to pick one slit or the other. In other words, conscious observation creates the reality at the quantum level creates the reality that it's observing. Think about the implications of that. So the entire universe, quantum bit by quantum bit, is one argument has it is created by by conscious observation. And that without conscious beings observing the universe would be all things. It would be passing through all possible slits at the same time, and only collapses into one thing when it's observed consciously. And so if Mark Twain was talking about that, he was about 70 years ahead of his life.
Wow.
Ahead of his time.
In putting this book together, did you write it in a room all by yourself, or did you have something in there with you? Because, I mean, I can't write without my dog. I've got to have my dog with me at all times because I think she's my protector. This is a heavy book, but at the same time, were you in there all by yourself?
Well, I have two young children. They're now 7 and 4, and two little girls, and a wonderful wife, Barbara. And there is no such thing as by yourself. in that circumstance, right? We live in New York City. We live in a very, very small apartment, 500, 600 square feet. And frankly, like I've many times I've written passages in my book that with a child on my lap. And, so yes, I had someone with me. I had my children, and they were at least within earshot. And what a wonderful blessing and wonderful comfort that is.
Oh, so true, so true. Where can people go to find out more about you, Sebastian? Because I want them to really dig into your thought process, because you're an educator right now, and you're teaching people to look beyond what they think things are.
Well, thank you. I'm honored by that. So my book is called In My Time of Dying: How I Came Face to Face with the Idea of an Afterlife. And you can find out everything you want about me on my website. It's SebastianJunger.com. Junger is spelled Junger, SebastianJunger.com. Or you can go online to Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, or the best of all, go to your local bookstore, have a cup of coffee, browse the books. Check out my book. If it looks interesting, take it home and read it. It's a short book. It'll take you a couple of hours, 3 hours maybe to read, and buy some other books as well, because authors are a wonderful thing in a society.
It kind of reminds me
of
the
whole world to be had in the books that you can buy, and there's a whole world of ideas to be had in the books that you can buy.
It reminds me so much of, there was a short book that the Dalai Lama put out called The Art of Dying. And I think that the education in this book here, it goes along the same way. It's going to touch them in a way that's really going to open up their hearts. And I think, and I love the fact that you did not go into a big 400-page book.
My wife was glad of that too, because that would have taken years.
Well, please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door's always going to be open for you.
Hey, thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, sir?
All right, I will. I'll try.
Okay, bye-bye.